Welcome to Summer Session Week 3. This is for Lincoln University School of Nursing, and it's hard to believe we're already in Week 3. This presentation is a basic review of the anatomy and physiology of the gastrointestinal system. Our objectives are to identify the structure of the GI system that belong to the upper GI tract and the lower GI tract, and describe the function of the GI tract. The GI tract is split into two segments, the upper and lower tract. The upper tract is the esophagus to the duodenum, and the lower tract includes the small and large intestines. The picture shown includes the whole digestive system. However, we will not talk about all the organs in this system, but just the portion of the GI tract. The first structure we'll encounter is the esophagus. The esophagus is a 25 centimeter muscular tube structure that involves involuntary and voluntary movement called peristalsis, which is a segmented wave of contraction of muscle. The upper esophageal sphincter keeps air from entering the esophagus. Then the food passes through the esophagus using peristalsis. Before entering the stomach, the food passes through the lower esophageal sphincter, or the LES, also known as the cardiac sphincter. The food then passes to the stomach, and the lower esophageal sphincter opens and then closes to prevent regurgitation of the food bolus. The mechanism of relaxation for the lower esophageal sphincter is caused by neural and hormonal stimulation and with swallowing, cholinergic vagal input, and the digestive hormone gastrin, which is secreted in the mouth, increases muscle tone. Non-adrenergic and non-cholinergic vagal impulses relax the lower esophageal sphincter. The hormone progesterone and secretin and glucagon also relax the lower esophageal sphincter. Continuing on, the food enters the stomach. As seen in the picture, the stomach is divided into three parts: the fundus, the body, the pyloric antrum. The stomach is a hollow muscular organ that is positioned below the diaphragm. This is important to remember since there are structural disorders that protrude up the diaphragmatic opening. These are called hiatal hernias, and we'll discuss that next week. In the stomach, the food is stored, secretes digestive juices, mixes food with these juices, and propels partially digested food called chyme into the duodenum. There are three layers of the stomach, and they get progressively thicker as they move towards the antrum. The fundus receives the food and is stimulated by the swallowing process. Food moves through the greater and lesser curvature and then passes through the pyloric sphincter into the duodenum, which is the opening. The stomach blood supply is from the celiac artery, and the two veins are the splenic vein and the gastric vein. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves from the autonomic system are embedded in the stomach. When the stomach is emptied, it is under no tension, and the walls of the fundus contract very little. When swallowing occurs, the fundus relaxes to receive the food. The food spends most of its time in the body of the stomach, where hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen are combined to form pepsin. Pepsinogen is the inactive form, and pepsinogen then breaks down the food. The food then moves through the duodenum, where most of the digestion takes place. The liver and gallbladder secrete bile into the duodenum to aid in the breakdown of fats. Also, the pancreas releases enzyme to aid in digestion as well. On the inside of the duodenum, there are villi, and on these villi are more villi, which are protrusions, and they increase the surface area for absorption, and this is known as the brush border, which also produces enzymes to help break down the chyme. The duodenum is the initial segment of the small intestine. When you're thinking of the small intestine and the sections, think DJ ileum. which is duodenum, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. So the lower tract starts off with the small intestines, and it's 5 to 6 meters long, and includes three segments, the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. D, J, ileum. The nutrients absorbed in the duodenum are water, iron, sodium, calcium, fats, sugars, proteins, vitamins, and magnesium. The duodenum leads to the jejunum. This is where sugars and proteins are absorbed. The ileum absorbs bile salts, vitamin B12, and chloride. There's no structure separating the three segments of the intestines. Rather, there is a change in the lining and the thickness of the structure's walls. Movement of the food is affected by two factors: the rhythmic contraction of the smooth muscle, called haustral segmentation, and peristalsis, which is a wave of contractions as we talked about earlier. Most of the duodenum is located in the perineal cavity. The intestines are encased in a sac called the perineum. The jejunum and ileum are suspended by mesentery. The ileocecal valve is the connection to the large intestine. The large intestine contains 4 segments and is about 1.5 meters long. The ileocecal valve is the connection between the ileum and the cecum. The colon is divided into 4 sections: the ascending colon, or the right colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and the sigmoid colon. There are 2 sphincters to the large intestines that aid in the movement of fecal waste. The first one we talked about, the ileocecal valve, and the second one is O'Brien's sphincter, which I have labeled, which aids in the movement from the sigmoid colon to the rectum. The anal canal has smooth muscles controlled by 2 sphincters, the internal anal sphincter and the external anal sphincter. The structure propels the feces out of the body through the anus. The colon absorbs water by diffusion, and when aldosterone is released, it increases the permeability of sodium by diffusion and active transport. It wasn't a fart. My lower intestines blew you a kiss. So for our discussion, by Wednesday, 11:59, post the initial discussion. Describe the function of a digestive organ not mentioned in this presentation. So that could include the mouth, the teeth, the tongue, the pancreas, etc. Describe the importance of this organ with regards to digestion. And Saturday, by 11:59, post response to at least one peer's post. State one new fact or piece of information about that organ from your peer's post that you didn't know or you found interesting. All right, well, thank you for listening, and I look forward to your discussions. And next week, we'll talk about the different disorders of the upper and lower GI tract. Thank you.